What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao, and thanks for joining us for the news this afternoon. Taiwan has woken up to fallen trees, ruined crops, flooding, and landslides after Typhoon Kong-Rey vented its fury on the country, leaving 2 people dead and hundreds injured. While the worst is over, the massive job of cleaning up has only just begun. In the north, teams are working to clear blocked roads and rail lines of fallen trees. Along the east coast, hundreds of people are trying to return home after landslides inundated mountainous areas. While in southeastern Taidong, farmers are grappling with heavy losses after taking a direct hit from the typhoon, the strongest to hit Taiwan in 30 years. We'll go live to Taidong in a moment. We'll begin our coverage with a report from John Van Trieste about recovery efforts across the country.
On Taiwan's east coast, the scars of Typhoon Kong-Rey are everywhere. This middle school in the town of Yuli was among the many damaged buildings.
树木的部分就是被吹倒很多，然后我们3楼的屋顶也大部分都被吹下来。
And it wasn't just the wind. Multiple rock slides blocked off a major highway down the east coast, and it will be some time before they can be cleared.
退的隧道前面的一个土石流量体大概12000方，最快到明天中午的时候进行抢通。
It isn't all bad news, though. A Czech couple that went missing while on a hiking holiday managed to get an SOS out as the storm overtook them. After a blustery night sheltering in place, a helicopter managed to get them out of the eastern mountains where they'd gotten stranded. Elsewhere in the country, things are slowly returning to normal. After a night of diversions, cancellations, and dramatic failed landings like this one, Taoyuan Airport, the country's main gateway, is back to running as usual. And while some areas have canceled classes and work for a second day, much of the country is back to school or the office. But there are signs Kong-Rey won't be forgotten soon. Even here in the capital, Taipei, where damage has been relatively light, there are fallen trees and debris everywhere. Work crews have been at it since dawn, trying to bring life here back to normal. But as the state of this downtown park suggests, there's a lot of work left to be done. Devin Tsai and John Van Trieste in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
And down in southeastern Taidong, farmers are assessing the damage to their crops. Rick Lauder is live for us from a rice valley in Taidong. Rick, Kong-Rey made landfall pretty much where you are. Just how serious is the damage there?
Well, this is Cheshang. Usually at this time of year, it's a valley that is a sea of gold, rice ripe and ready for harvest. But after Typhoon Kong-Rey, many of the fields look like this, flattened and flooded by the storm's wind and rain. Now, Taidong County is one of the country's most important agricultural regions. A lot of the country's fruit and rice is grown here, and Typhoon Kong-Rey hit when this produce was weeks, and in the case of this rice, just days away from harvest. This was a particularly late typhoon, and it's having a devastating effect on agriculture here. We spent the morning talking to some of the region's farmers.
因为真的到割稻前10天了啦，所以稻子很重，所以说那么大的台风，风加雨，真的损失最少都是30% 以上。
For many people here, this typhoon means 6 months of work quite literally going down the drain. Farmers here today telling me that nowadays they not only need to know how to grow their crops, they also need to know how to predict the weather.
Thank you, Rick. That was Rick Lauer reporting live from Taidong. Now, despite the country opening for work and school again, many people on Taiwan's northeast coast are instead cleaning up the damage left by the typhoon. Tiffany Wong reports from Yilan.
Here in Yilan County, the government has ordered most people back to work and school today. But for many, their normal life is not back quite yet. For example, this family that usually sells bumper cars is instead spending their day cleaning up these fallen trees after Typhoon Kong-Rey. The storm brought over 1 meter of rainfall over the past 24 hours in this area and strong winds over 100 kilometers per hour, which caused major damage, especially to trees. Now, this is an area that's been extensively hit by landslides caused by that heavy rain, and it's also brought road closures. And now today, that's all starting to reopen. Residents told me that yesterday the wind was especially strong in the afternoon, and that knocked down hundreds of trees in the area, which caused the most damage. Although the storm has passed, residents say that it'll take more than a day to recover from this after what they hope will be the last typhoon of the season. Kama Sri and Tiffany Wong in Yilan County for TaiwanPlus.
Kong-Rey has left Taiwan and is barreling toward China, where Shanghai is bracing for what may be its worst rains in nearly half a century. Kong-Rey has been downgraded to a tropical storm, but it is set to sweep along China's eastern coast over the next 2 days. Shanghai has launched an emergency response for possible flooding, and residents there have been warned to stock up on water and food. China's national forecasters have also issued rainstorm warnings for parts of its southeastern and eastern provinces, including Fujian, Zhejiang, and Jiangsu. Ferry and train routes there have been suspended. As Taiwan picks up again after Typhoon Kong-Rey, a hotly anticipated court hearing that was delayed by the storm is now taking place. The Taipei District Court is deciding whether former Taipei Mayor Wen-je can continue to be detained in connection with a corruption investigation. Reese Ayers is live at the court. Reese, has there been a decision yet?
Well, Eric, no decision from the courts here just yet regarding Wen-je and whether or not he can remain detained for a further 2 months. It's all part of the most dramatic political scandal in Taiwan this year. Ke, still technically the leader of Taiwan's third party, the Taiwan People's Party. He also ran for president earlier this year. He's actually been held incommunicado since early September. That means that he can't speak to anybody, and that's over fears that he could possibly collude or communicate with other defendants in the case, corrupting this investigation. Now, his detainment hasn't been without opposition. His supporters are saying that his detainment is politically motivated, and just this morning and into the afternoon, a group of protesters outside the courts saying that he's already been detained for too long, despite there being no real evidence against him.
And Reese, what about the case that Ke's involved with? Have there been any developments there since he was detained?
Well, the courts initially detained Ke, ruling that he clearly knew about some illegal real estate dealings involving a shopping mall during his second term as the mayor of Taipei after 2018. The question really is, how much did Ke really know about those dealings? Well, people around Ke are already deeply involved in the case. One former real estate developer has already pleaded guilty in this investigation, and Ke's personal secretary, Xu Zhiyu, who has been in Japan already for a number of weeks, is reportedly still abroad, despite several calls for her to return, which is leading to some speculation that she's deliberately avoiding questioning. Now, Ke himself has already been questioned 4 or 5 times in this case. For now, we can just await the court's decision regarding Ke's future detainment, and we'll bring you that information and decision as soon as it's announced.
Thanks for that update, Reese. That was Reese Ayers live in Taipei, and he'll be back later with the court's decision. North Korean state media has released footage of the test launch of its Hwasong-19 intercontinental ballistic missile. This new solid fuel missile flew higher and longer than any previous weapon that Pyongyang has tested. North Korean state media quoted its leader Kim Jong-un as hailing the launch as a success in manufacturing what he called a nuclear delivery system. South Korea, Japan, and the U.S. have all condemned the launch. A new level of cosmic potential may be unlocked as researchers from Japan prepare to launch the world's first wooden satellite. Harrell Hughes tells us the inspiration behind this new development in space research.
This small cube of wood, cut, carved, and assembled, will soon orbit Earth as the world's first wooden satellite. Japanese researchers hope it will change the way humans approach space development.
今までいわゆるどの国の宇宙開発も計画していなかったことで、この宇宙で木を使うということが人類が宇宙に持続可能でですね、永遠に発展していける一つの方法であると、やり方であるということを世界の皆さんに知ってほしいと思います。
Low Earth orbit is getting crowded. Scientists estimate there are more than 30,000 pieces of junk hurtling around the planet, adding to the more than 9,000 satellites currently in orbit. Once these satellites exceed their usefulness, they either add to the amount of space junk or they re-enter the atmosphere and burn up, releasing harmful chemicals, which could eventually change the planet's thermal balance.
今現在使われている衛星はアルミニウム製ですので、これは地球大気圏に再突入させるとアルミナ粒子を作り出して地球大気圏を汚します。
Researchers hope crafting satellites out of renewable materials like wood can alleviate the amount of space pollution and, in the long term, lead to timber houses on the moon and Mars. But first, scientists have to test that wood can survive in space. To build the CUBE satellite, they looked inward for inspiration, drawing from traditional techniques used in Japan for centuries.
今回人工衛星の目的で使ったのはホウノキ、マグノリアと木の一種類ですけども、伝統的にはやはり加工しやすくって噴景しにくいという特徴を使ってますので、代表的なところとしましては日本刀の鞘とか、強度を利用して下駄ですね、下駄の刃とかに使われたりするわけですね。
The small cube will make its first mission to the International Space Station in early November and will stay in orbit for 6 months. Scientists hope this will give them the first glimpse into the durability of wood in space and lead to a new level of cosmic potential. Andy Xue and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
6 people have died after a boat full of Rohingya refugees landed in Indonesia's East Aceh province. Local authorities say human traffickers abandoned the group of 96 people, including children, on a beach. It's the second wave of such arrivals to Indonesia within a week as members of the mostly Muslim minority group flee persecution in Myanmar. Authorities say they will provide the refugees with temporary support.
Kita fasilitasi di sini nanti kita dengan Pak Kapolres dan di Forkopimda semua, Pak Deji, Pak Camat, juga masyarakat di sini menyediakan tenda paling tidak, dan kita akan buka dapur umum juga ya, supaya mereka tidak bisa keluar jauh dari sini. Nanti setelah ada penanganan dari tim UNHCR, baru mereka akan ditempatkan sesuai dengan agenda dari UNHCR.
According to UN data, over 2,300 Rohingya arrived in Indonesia from Myanmar last year. At least 158 people are dead in Spain after the worst flash floods in 3 decades. As rescue teams race to find people who are still missing, the country's defense minister has warned that the death toll is expected to rise. A storm dropped a year's worth of torrential rain on parts of eastern and southern Spain, causing flash flooding that sparked mudslides and inundated villages. In the worst impacted region, Valencia, the extent of the damage is becoming clearer, with debris scattered across roads and piles of cars blocking streets.
Bueno, todo destrozado, comercios, supermercados, colegios, coches, todo destrozado. Estas caravanas vienen del 27, casi en Valencia. Se recorrieron todo esto hasta llegar aquí. Y aquí a la derecha, como no sé si lo habéis visto, hay un barco y todo. O sea, ha sido increíble, alucinante.
And as the storm system moves north, Spain's weather agency has issued warnings to residents of Castellón province to stay indoors. The U.S. presidential candidates are campaigning hard in the final days before next week's vote. Democratic candidate Kamala Harris is trying to shore up support, telling voters the country needs to move away from her rival, Donald Trump.
And we know we have an opportunity in this election to turn the page on a decade of Donald Trump trying to keep us divided and afraid of each other. We're done with that. We're exhausted by it. We're done with that.
Harris made those comments at a rally in Reno, Nevada. She had 3 campaign stops in Nevada and Arizona on Thursday. Republican candidate Donald Trump was also in Nevada, stoking fears about migration to court voters.
The United States is now an occupied country. Can you believe I have to say that? We're an occupied country. They're coming in, and they're by the thousands, and they have equipment that's military-grade equipment. How do they get that? They have military-grade equipment.
Both candidates are in the Southwest just a few days before the election to appeal to the region's Hispanic voters who have traditionally tended to vote for Democrats. And thank you for joining us this afternoon for What's Up Taiwan. I'm Eric Out. Take care. We'll see you later.